a try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it, all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm easy enough to find on all your socials, and you can always just drop an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, as you've surely deduced by now, this is not your regular weekly episode, but it is yet another hybridized weekly / bonus episode. This week, I'm very excited to welcome back one of our first ever guests here on the Scrum of the Earth. I'm speaking, of course, of the Jason Potras of Scottish rugby. It's Jonny McGinty. Johnny, welcome back, and how of Fife are you?
Hello, I'm very good. Good to see you. I'm loving the professionalism, by the way. I was sitting backstage watching the introduction thinking, wow, we should do this, but I think after 303 episodes now, we are where we are. People don't come to us for professionalism, so.
No, you do that great intro. I've been on your show a couple of times, and it really gets me fired up. The song is great. The montage, I assume that was an original, Cammy put together of all those images. It's fantastic.
So the montage is Cammy. I'll let you into a little known secret. The intro music song is actually Rory's band. Rory, who runs the blog. His old band did the song.
Really?
Yeah.
So who plays drums for that band? Is it Rory?
I feel like it is. I think I should know what instrument Rory plays by now, and I think it is drums. But I would have to double check.
Is he also the creator of the legally mandated Lions Chat? Because I swear to God, there's some mornings I wake up with that song in my head.
No, that was Cammy. Well, all the jingles are Cammy. The proper music is Rory.
Wow, it's a hell of a song.
Really, distinct skill sets.
We had to do a setup at my work with these massive monitors and stuff, and just to test the sound, I used that song, and a bunch of the the cleaning staff were like, "What is this? This is great!" I'm like, "Yeah, right."
It's a really good song.
To
my shame, I can't at the very moment pull from the depths of my memory what Rory's old band was called.
It's like Wooden Tooth or something. It's something like that.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. I can't believe you know it to me. That's terrible.
I found him. I've got him on Spotify even. So.
That's a shameful start that you know my own podmates' bands better than I do.
Did I know that he had anything to do with that band? Absolutely not.
I'll tell you what, I don't think Rory could name my band either, so I think we're okay.
There you go. By the way, how of Fife are you? I was saving that for you. I thought that was.
I know, good. I like that. I loved it, and I've still got my kit on because I've come straight from kids training. So there you go. I did enjoy it. If it wasn't for the fact that I was starstruck by your professionalism, that would be the first thing that I'd react to that.
Yes, I've upgraded to a different free service, so sparing no expense on my budget. Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to jump right into our reviews. There was a lot going on this week, as usual. Johnny, do you pay attention to competitions other than the URC?
Yeah, I watch a fair bit of the Premiership. Obviously, there's a large section of the Scotland team coming from the Premiership. I always was a Premiership rugby fan. I'm a Northampton Saints fan, which kind of goes up and down. Yeah.
So were you up in arms and posting about the rebranding? Were you all upset about the badge?
I hate it. I understand it makes sense. It's like back to the origins and whatever, but there was nothing wrong with the old badge and the new one.
I like the badge.
It's not good.
I'm told that it's more mobile friendly this way. That part of the thinking was, you'll see this graphic will be easier to see on your phone.
That's just actually quite upsetting. I hadn't seen that, and now I'm annoyed.
And now even worse. Yes, we're off to a great start. Well, the biggest match for me, we just kind of mentioned it just now, was the NPC final. It was Wellington hosting Bay of Plenty. The NPC debuted 48 years ago. Bay of Plenty were actually the first champions, though there was no actual final. They just managed to finish at the top of the table. The game itself, sadly, it was pissing down rain. So everyone in the stands kind of went back up under the overhang. So the first 30 rows were just empty. And I mean, I feel like that's not good for the teams. You want the fans to be right near you and making that noise and putting that pressure on you, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We'll come to it later when we get onto the URC, but I watched the second half of Ulster Cardiff last night, And as Cardiff started to come back into the game, the Arms Park was bouncing, and you could hear it.
Yeah, it made a big difference.
That's the sort of thing that makes a huge difference. I mean, I've never played in front of a huge crowd, but playing in front of any crowd is better than playing in front of none. And I think, the further they are away from the pitch, the harder it is for them to impact the game. And that's, ultimately is what you want, is you want your supporters to feel like they're part of it and get involved and help you over the line. So if they're all hiding under the awnings because it's pish and rain, that makes it quite difficult.
Yeah, it was pretty subdued for a final. By the way, Wellington, they had clearly decided to play the slow it down game, like especially at every set piece, everyone's slowly walking. It started to work. You could tell like that mental pressure was building on the Steamers, and you could tell that they were starting to get frustrated. Like, what is your least favorite tactic that teams employ against you? What's something that other teams have done that just really kind of flummoxed you and get you worked up?
I don't know, because I feel like a lot of people, I'm not going to name any names in our division, but there's one that likes to get really fighty, and I think they feel like they're getting into our heads when they do it, but actually we love it. And we've played them quite recently, and a lot of messages in our group chat was like, they love to fight, but they couldn't hang with it last time. Let's get after them again. Let's get in their faces. So, I think that's the most misguided one. I don't know if it's necessarily the most annoying, but it is misguided because the amount of teams that think like, oh, we'll get in there and we'll get really physical and they won't like it. The team that I'm playing with at the moment in particular, we quite enjoy that actually.
Nice.
I think people come in with the idea that like, oh, let's like get some stray punches in, let's dig at people and let's make it difficult for them that way. And I think like that never works, because you don't get into a game like rugby if you're not up for getting involved in some of that stuff. So I think there's teams that are like, oh yeah, we'll be the nastiest and nobody will like to play us. And actually what you do is you go, oh, we're playing them and they think they're really nasty, so let's just be nasty about it.
It's also funny though, because at the pro level, like I've literally never seen a fight in rugby. It's always this is my jersey. No, this is my jersey. and who can smile more obnoxiously while we're pretending to fight? Somebody tried to get into it with Bundy Aki this weekend, and it's like, that guy would not be so tough if he did not know for a fact that Bundy Aki is never throwing a punch.
And this is the thing. See, the week before the Ultimate International break starts, you can swing at an international player all you want, because nobody is getting suspended for punching someone in a URC game and missing the entire international series. Like, that's not happening.
I was like, that must be a cool feeling to be like, you know what? I'm going to square up to Bundy Aki because he's not doing anything.
I like the Scotland-Ireland World Cup game. Pierre Schumann put Ronan Kelleher, I think it was, over the advertising boards. That was fun.
That was amazing. I think the only punch I've ever seen was the Hawass punch, actually. And that was just his wife.
Yeah.
Too soon.
I will say, as much as I love him, and I think it's one of the strongest aspects of his game, Jamie Ritchie's a man with a face that you'd like to punch. I wouldn't, obviously.
No.
But I can see why people want to punch him, and I think he plays on it. I think it's brilliant. And
everybody is competing with everyone's competing with Faf de Klerk for that award of the most punchable face, the most like, oh, I just really. So in this one, it was a soggy 15-7 at halftime. They were tied at 20 with 5 minutes to go. We had to go to extra time, or golden point, as they call it, which not a fan of that term. It ended up going to double overtime with 100 minutes showing on the clock. It was 23-20 for the favorites in Wellington. Bit of a bummer for someone like me who always roots for the underdogs, but epic final. I'm a little sad to see this competition end. I love this competition. Sorry, go ahead.
I like it as well. No, I was just going to say, it's a competition that I quite enjoy. It's really, really difficult to watch, but I feel like anytime you do manage to like go out of your way to go and watch it, you're always rewarded, because I think there's some brilliant games.
There is, and sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this team has 5 All Blacks this week, but guess what? They're not available next week, and you just never know which teams you're going to get. And they call it the Storm Week, so in order to fit an extra round in throughout the course of the season, everyone plays a Wednesday game. So you play on like a Saturday, then the Wednesday, and then the next Sunday. So you get 3 games in over the course of like 8 days, which is tough. But on the other hand, is a brilliant test of depth, right? It really shows how much you've got on your squad overall. Do you think that's an idea that might trickle over to the URC or another competition?
I think in the Northern Hemisphere, where the player unions are better represented, they remind me, because we've not been here for a while. Do we swear here?
Go ahead. I just put the label on basically, depending on what comes out.
I feel like the players you use might shit a chicken if you suggested playing 3 games in 8 days up in the Northern Hemisphere. They're a bit more relaxed down in New Zealand with what they can force players to do. So it's an interesting idea. I don't think that we would get away with it.
It's really exciting as a fan because knowing that there's a game in the bag on a Wednesday morning when you get to work, it's like, ooh, nice. And they have to rotate so heavily to just fulfill those fixtures. It's great. Anyway, a little sad to see that competition end for another year. It's so exciting, really up and down, and it was a great final. Of course, elsewhere, there was plenty of action, as always, in France. The mystical, magical, and totally batshit top 14. As we're speaking now, 6 of those 7 games have concluded with a cracker between Toulouse and Toulon coming up later today. Johnny, out of the 6 in the books, how many home teams do you figure already won?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. In the top 14, it's different to French teams in Europe. 2?
5 of the 6 home teams won. The trope held up this week. Going through just lightning quick. My favorite team, UBB, they beat Po 19-6. Not too exciting in that one.
They're not our favorite team at the moment. Old Bordeaux.
Oh no.
We might come on to that if we're talking about the international squads, but they're in the bad books at the moment with us.
Oh, actually, that's not in my script. We might have to come back and talk another day.
Well, let's do the roundup of top 14, and I'll tell you why Bordeaux are in the bad books.
Love it. Vaughan, they got a rare win over Cast, 34-28. All I can think is, how hard is it to stay up in the top 14 after being promoted? Like, it must be really frustrating to be a fan of one of those teams that's always yo-yoing up and down from, like, I'm in the Pro D2, I'm in the top 14. Like, it seems like a cruel and unusual sentence for fans.
Oh, 100%. Although I did see, I think it must have been on Instagram, a video of somebody going for an away day weekend to go and watch Van, and it looks incredible. That looks like a great place to go watch a game.
Well,
sign me up. I'd be.
Have you gone, by the way? Have you ever seen a top 14 game in person?
I haven't. I've never watched rugby in France at all. I think it's the only.
It's got to be on my bucket list.
I think it's the only rugby country. I'm trying to tick it off. The only rugby country in Europe I've never been to see a game is I've never been to France. Been to Italy, played in Italy, watched in Italy. Same in Wales, same in England, Ireland as well. So yeah, France is the only one left on my list.
You got to get there and send me pics.
I will do. I'm making it a priority.
Yes, thank you. Montpellier, they shut out La Rochelle 16-0. Not really sure what happened there and what's up with La Rochelle. Racing 92, they got back on the horse with a 30-23 victory over Perpignan. Lyon, they were the first and only home team to lose on Saturday, despite scoring 38 points, mind you, as Bayonne rolled up and dropped 49 on them. Kind of shocked by that one. Stade Francais, they finally got off the schneid to take out Clermont 36-6. And I already mentioned our final match of the round hasn't happened yet as we're talking, but it should be a really good one. The top 14 are so good at putting a real cracker just on Sunday by itself. This one's Toulouse versus Toulon, the battle of the twos. Who you got in that one, Johnny? Do you think it's going to be 6-1 for the home teams by the end of today?
It's got to be Toulouse. Like somebody mentioned this in I think it must be the Scottish Rugby Forum Facebook group. Toulouse starting 4 international fullbacks in 4 different positions this week is mental. So they've got
DuPont's like, you know what? I'm going to play 8 this week, and they're like, we're still going to win.
So they don't have a 10. They've got Juan Cruz Malia, who plays 15 for the Pumas, playing 10. They've got Blair Kinghorn on one wing, Ange Capuozzo on the other wing, and then Toma Ramos at fullback as well. Like, who's paying for that? Is my question.
I love that we just don't even look at the books in France. It's like, you know what? It's fine.
Although there's the famous story of Toulon, must have been Toulon, spending out with their means and not being able to pay back his Bota. And I think this is the thing about France is, for all that they're absolutely mad, I think if I owned a rugby team in France and I could only pay one player, it might be Baki's Bota. I don't understand why you're paying somebody else and not
especially
him.
If he has your address, right?
Yeah, as well. So he hung the owner out of his office window by his ankles until he got his money, which is understandable.
It's the Sopranos of rugby over there. It's great.
You wouldn't mess with Baki's Bota. Like I'd be taking money out of my own bank account to pay him.
I'd have to hire Hawas to just look after me.
So if you want to know about UPB before we move on,
please.
Johnny Gray is not in the Scotland autumn squad.
Saw that. I saw Gregor was angry and disappointed.
Yeah. So, and apparently he's angry and disappointed with UBB because he thinks it's mostly them and not so much Johnny Gray. I'm not sure if he's right, but certainly, UBB are in the Scottish rugby bad books at the moment because for whatever reason, Johnny Gray's not been released to join the squad, and they're getting the blame. So,
I wondered if it had to do with his brother. I don't know. It feels like there's more going on. I also thought it was weird for Gregor to be like, "I am angry." It's like, you mean you're okay, right?
Yeah, you can't even say you're angry in an angry voice. I do think it's weird. I expected to see Richie, even if he's in the squad for next week, to do one more game at Murrayfield. I don't know. Nothing that Gregor does makes sense. It's not called the TD Tombola for nothing.
I can't even listen to him. I think it's the official Scottish Rugby Pod. So one of those had a big interview with him this week, and I'm like, I can't even listen to the guy. He's soporific. I don't believe anything coming out of his mouth, and it puts me to sleep.
Have you watched the 2021 Lions Tour documentary?
Yes. And he's like, well,
brutal. The game where they let him do the pre-game team talk. He's talking about how on the flight over he was reading a book about Muhammad Ali. And I think I fell asleep just watching it. I can't imagine being sitting in the changing room before a game and Gregor Townsend going, so I was reading this book about Muhammad Ali.
Do you guys like boxing?
It was telling me how much he's committed to every contest. Like, Gregor, you're not even committed to this sentence, mate. Like, you're not inspiring me here.
I'm sorry. I was on the bandwagon to get him out of there 2-3 years ago. It was the Finn time when the Finn is not playing up to stuff. When he was the fourth pick for 10 for Scotland, I was like, you know what? No confidence vote. Can we get a no confidence vote going?
I have a theory which makes me, as Gregor would say, angry and disappointed about Scotland and what's coming down the line. But when we get to the big chat, I'll let you know what it is.
So meanwhile, over in England, the PWR and the Prem kept on keeping on Saturday. Harlequins narrowly defeated my Loughborough Lightning 22-19. That was a bit of a bummer for me. Johnny, do you have a team in the PWR that you particularly like?
Not so much as I follow a lot of players, because obviously the majority of the Scotland women's squad are in the PWR.
Yep.
So Ellis Martin, big friend of the pod. She was most recently with Leicester. So we like to keep an eye on her. Jade Conkle plays for Harlequins, obviously, so we like to keep an eye on her. So yeah, no, I like to watch, see how the Scotland women are doing, and keep track of them rather than keep track of a team. I feel like I support enough teams already.
You hit your limit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm enjoying the PWR more than the Prem. I feel like I have an attitude about the Prem almost. It's weird.
I think because the Prem is so terrible, so poorly managed, losing a team through going bankrupt at the rate of one a year and then trying to convince teams from other competitions to go and join their clearly terrible model. I don't think anybody's overly enamored with the Prem at the moment.
The amount of talk I hear about, the Welsh English League, I'm like, who is this good for? The English League is in a shambles. Wales is in shambles. You're going to combine two shambles? What are you going to get? Double shamble? Like, it's very strange to me. I'm told it's almost inevitable, though. Exeter.
I'm sick of it.
I'm a little tired of hearing about it.
I just want a solution one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Rip off the Band-Aid. Something has to happen. So Exeter beat the Trailfinders 36-25. The Chiefs look really good this year, unlike their male counterparts. Sale got demolished by Bristol Bears women who pasted their host 10-57, including a couple lovely tries from Jazz Joyce. I had to remind myself that Jazz Joyce is not even 30 years old yet. Do you see her getting another World Cup after this coming one in England?
Jazz Joyce is ludicrous. I think it's difficult because the problem is that she isn't massively old, but she hasn't been treated as a world-class professional athlete.
Right.
And so, like, you'd think if she'd been treated as the caliber of athlete that she is from the time that she was like 15 years old, she'd easily have 2 more World Cups. But does she have 2 more World Cups when she's having to, until very recently, play international rugby on a Saturday and then go back to work on a Monday? That affects your longevity when you're not looking after yourself properly, or you're not in a position to look after yourself properly. I hope she does. I think circumstances might be against her, but fingers crossed. I would love to see her for 2 more World Cups.
It makes me think of like people are saying she's kind of lost a step, and people are saying like things about her, and I'm like, it reminds me of Michael Jordan Part 2 when he became Floor Jordan instead of Air Jordan, and it's like, well, yeah, he can't do those things the same, but now his mental capacity is at a different level, and he understands the game at such a deep level that things come easier, and he can do other things. So I feel like she's at that. I think she's Floor Jordan level right now. That sounds really mean. I was trying to say something nice.
Yeah, I think if you don't understand the reference, then yes, it does. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So earlier today, before we talked, a huge clash between Saracens and Gloucester Hartbury. But look, 2 losses in a row for reigning champs. Sarries took them out 49-38. Is there a new sheriff in town?
I hope not. Or at least if there is, I hope it's not Saracens. And the thing is, like, I'm like you. I have a totally different attitude to the PWR and to women's rugby in general. Like, whisper it. I don't like the Red Roses, but I don't hate them. But all that being said, I just can't get on board with Saracens. Saracens have got a netball team. I've never watched netball in my life, but I do not like the Saracens netball team. Like that's the depth of my feeling towards Saracens.
Oh, you're speaking to my heart. Netball. It's like, well, we have this game. It's basically basketball, but much less exciting. So let's watch that.
It's basketball with no moving.
Yeah.
I had to try and teach netball to a class last year, and I thought I did a pretty good job until the netball coach at school came into the staff room one day and explained to me that I'd done it all wrong. So, 4 of your class came to the netball team and they're stinking. I was like, not my fault.
I mean, where was he? So meanwhile, over in the Prem, Bristol, they beat the rebranded Northampton Saints 31-23. Are we supposed to take the Bears seriously this season? Because I'm just really struggling with that.
Like, everyone, you always get the impression that you're meant to take Bristol seriously, but then something always happens that reminds you that you can't. And it's just not happened yet this year. Like, the don't take Bristol seriously moment is coming. I just can't.
They're gonna score 3 against somebody soon. It's gonna be 3-48 against Bath or something like that. It's coming.
Exactly. Like I've been burned before. I've spent enough years going, are Bristol really good? Bristol are really exciting, and then it's like, oh, there we go. That's what we were waiting for. So this year, I'm not getting excited until that happens. I'll believe
that's fair.
That Bristol are a joke team up until they're in the Premiership final, and then I might go, oh, okay, well, maybe we can take Bristol seriously. But the Bristol moment is coming.
Speaking of teams it's hard to take seriously, Gloucester ran up a big score against no longer entirely hopeless Newcastle, 36-7. Gloucester is another team I'm told is for real this year. I think in both cases, maybe they also need to learn how to play defense.
Yeah, like the baller, you score 40, we'll score 45 thing only works as long as you are consistently scoring 45. And I've never seen a team that can consistently score 45. At some point, you need to be able to defend.
Well, Bath smashed Sale 40-13. Finn again played the full 80. He was almost perfect off the tee. I find it annoying that I have to watch the Premiership if I want to watch Finn. You know what I mean? Do you feel that?
Yeah. No, it does irritate me because it's another subscription. See, this is the thing that I don't know, because I don't know how the subscription works for you. I see you talk about Peacock all the time. But if I want to watch the Premiership, that's another subscription I've got to pay for. So I try and just like stream games illegally when I can, if there's something that I really want to watch. But the Premiership just isn't on. It's not high on my list of things to watch. Like there's not 4 international fullbacks starting in a team in the Premiership. So
right. There's no comedic factor even. Yeah, it's like it's okay, but there's no funny stuff and there's no weirdness either. So
yeah, exactly that.
Well, Saracens, they slipped up against not very good Leicester, losing 29-32. As we just started chatting, it was probably right around halftime for Exeter versus Harlequins. Gotta say, even if this had already happened, no way in hell am I watching that team at home. Like, you'd have to at least mute the audio, right?
Oh, 100%. And you know what? I think that might be my least favorite thing about the Premiership, is having to listen to something complicated.
Yeah, it's weird.
You know what? Speaking of how much I hate Premiership commentators, I found myself in a situation a couple of years ago where I was driving, so I had to listen to Glasgow play Exeter in the Champions Cup on BBC Radio. And for some reason, even though the game was at Scotstoun, they had the BBC Radio Devon commentary team. I don't know why. But I was listening to the BBC Radio Devon feed of Glasgow Exeter, and every time the Exeter fans started doing their Tomahawk song, Glasgow, to our credit, and I would always big us up, particularly the organisation SRU side, but to Glasgow's credit, every time they started doing the Tomahawk song, in breaks in play, Glasgow blasted the PA so that you couldn't hear it.
Nice.
I listened to the Radio Devon commentary crew go, yes, the Exeter fans tried to get the crowd going with the chop again, and for some reason Glasgow are playing music over the tannoy, so we can't really hear the atmosphere. Because it's extremely racist, you dicks. That's
for
why.
some reason. Weird.
If you know everybody hates it, stop doing it. So yes, commentary, my least favourite thing about the Premiership, and it's a crowded field.
Not to make yet another American sports reference, but they remind me so much of the formerly known as Washington Redskins, where the owner's like, what do you mean I have to change my racist name? What do you mean I have to change my racist branding? That sucks. And then afterwards he's eventually like, fine, I'll change my stupid racist branding, but I'm going to double down on how racist I actually am.
In a worst person competition between Dan Snyder and Tony Rowe, who do you think is the worst person? Because that is tough.
Snyder, because of all the stuff.
Who's the worst human being?
Snyder, by a long shot, from all the documents about the way it is working for the guy, too.
Oh, actually, yeah, I've just remembered all of the non-racist name-related stuff.
Yes, there's plenty of other toxic options. You can pick your toxic area.
Yeah, so let's, as much as sponsoring your team with a field and a made-up business park that you bought because nobody will sponsor you because you're so racist is bad, Dan Snyder is definitely worse.
He is. And by the way, even former fans of the Redskins now call the rebranded Washington Commanders, they just call them the Washington C-words.
That's just very upsetting. Do you know what? Washington football team was a great name. Should have just kept that.
I know.
That was hilarious. I enjoyed that.
Okay, so the focus of today... go ahead.
Sorry, allow me to derail the podcast for 2 seconds while I remember that I've not put Terry McLaurin into my fantasy lineup since we're talking about him. Do you know what? I'll do it after. That's extremely unprofessional. You've got an intro and everything. I'm not doing that. We'll do it after.
I've actually broken up with fantasy football. I've had enough.
Well, I'm number 1 seed in the league this year, so I have not.
Oh, that means you're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs, by the way.
Yes, thanks, David.
So, of course, the focus today is to talk about the URC. So, Johnny, if you could hit record, I'd appreciate it. There were some great matchups this week. I figured we'd zip through most of the fixtures and then finish with your team. That sound good?
Well, that's what I always like to do. So, yes, let's do that.
So, by the way, on a scale of Blair Kinghorn at Edinburgh to Blair Kinghorn at Toulouse, how much are you enjoying the URC this year?
I'm having such a good time. And you know what? 4 international fullbacks, 4 to choose from to play 10. And do you know who the actual sensible coach hasn't picked to start at 10 for Toulouse this weekend?
Do you suppose they just pick cards when they walk in? He's like, okay, who's 10 today? Well, for me, the weekend started off with Scarlets versus Zebre. This saw the Scarlets nab their 3rd win in a row, something they haven't done since 2022. Final score 30-8, which at the time put Scarlets in 5th place. Amazingly, should Scarlet fans have a little hope this year?
No, of course not. Yeah, okay, they have won 3 games, but they beat Zebre. And don't talk to me about Munster. Zebre are not a good team. They beat the Northern Hemisphere Bulls, which is not the same as the Bulls.
It is not.
And then they sneaked past Cardiff. It's nice that they're excited. All right, I get it. I've got lots of very good friends who are Scarlets fans, and I'm pleased for them. And I know that they are listening, and I know they're I'm going to hear about it when this episode is published, but I don't care. It's nice that they're excited. They're doing very well. They get to be in a fairly decent league position now for 5 weeks because there's an international break coming. But
that's right.
No, they haven't played any proper teams yet. Well, they certainly haven't beat any proper teams yet.
I do think it's improvement, though, from where they are last year. They were a burning fire at this time last year, so 3 in a row seems pretty good.
Okay, we'll give them now a smouldering fire instead of a raging fire.
By the way,
improvement for any of the Welsh teams on last year is not a marker I'd be aiming for. Let's put it that way.
Well, early in the first half, Zebre did a little drop goal. I always forget about it. So what's your take on the drop goal? Do you like them? I feel like we have the exact perfect rate that they happen these days, because it's like one happens and I go, oh, wow, cool. And then it doesn't happen again for just long enough that when it happens again, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I'm very situational on drop goals. I'm not like, I don't know if you've ever spoken to Steph from Rock and Roll about drop goals. He's universally not a fan of drop goals.
It's true.
I could take or leave drop goals. Like, it depends on the situation. Jack Crowley's drop goal for Munster against Leinster in the URC quarterfinals last year. Amazing. Like, exciting, perfect build-up, game on the line. Is he going to make this drop goal? Fantastic. Like, sign me up for more drop goals like that. George Ford, whatever it was, in an absolute dirge of a game against Argentina in a World Cup pool stage. Get that out of here. Like, drop goals are situational for me. Either they're brilliant or I'm just like, yeah, stop it. I'm not interested.
Benetton versus Bulls was next. This saw alternative kits for both sides, but of course no tries in the first half. I have to admit, I think I'm in danger of liking this alternative Benetton jersey. It's a little weird. And by the way,
that the threads one?
Yeah, they're like ropes or something.
One. Yeah.
At the time I was like, are they debuting this for Europe? Is this a tryout kind of thing? And by the way, they had their names on their backs for the first time. Where do you stand on that?
I quite like the names on the backs. I'm going to upset a lot of Scottish people because for some reason they can't help themselves from doing it. I don't like supporters replica kits with names on the backs. That makes you look like a stalker. I don't like players having their names on their backs. And I get, like, obviously, in the NFL, because the number is so prominent, you can't buy an NFL jersey without having a name on the back. Basketball and stuff the same. So, like, I guess from an American point of view, we're seeing, like, this is me talking to your market. I could be professional too. From an American point of view, where you're like ingrained into names on jerseys is a massive part, and there's a league table of who sells the most jerseys and stuff. I get that, you can't avoid that. I like players having their names on the back, partly because if I'm watching a team that I'm not familiar with, I can be like, oh, that's who that is. I think supporters rugby jerseys with names on the back is a bit weird.
I mean, in America too, we retire your number too, because you get, once it's yours, it's your number. So no Boston Celtic will ever wear 33 again because it's hanging from the rafters and it says Bird on the back. There's numbers like that. Because
I'm a big shithousery fan, I signed the campaign to have the Packers retire number 4 for a guy who punted for us for one season in 1987. After all that stuff. I was fine. I was like, yeah, let's do that. But no, we sadly didn't make that happen. But yeah,
I think it was for Brett Favre. Is that what you're getting at? I'm pretty sure that
number was indeed.
Yeah. Well, so by the way, Creel, he ended up kicking a conversion with less than a minute to win it. Bit of a heartbreaker for Benetton after leading the entire way. 15-17 was the final score. What does that score tell us about both these teams? Anything?
I think probably more about Benetton than it does about Bulls, because I'm kind of all in on the development of Benetton. I think they're becoming a better and better team. I think Italy as a whole is becoming better, and they're a kind of key to that. But also, as we just mentioned a minute ago when we talked about Scarlets, the Northern Hemisphere Bulls are a team that you should really be beating. And I think if you can't get that over the line after leading the whole game, then you've got to think, how far actually are they in their development?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good news for the Bulls because they definitely sent the alternative squad for sure. By the way, Sharks versus Munster was next. It was more bad news for Munster. They got pretty well spanked 41-24, though that last try did get them a bonus point. So the year that Munster won the championship, they were 5th on the table at the end of the year. They went 10-1-7 overall. That year, they were 2-4 after 6 games, just like this year. Should fans be panicking? Because it's starting to feel like that. What is the correct level of panicking for Munster fans right now?
Some of the mutual friends that we have got, so it'll not surprise you to hear that that's not the first time this weekend that I've been told how bad Munster were at this point of the season that they won the URC.
This week, I got to give her a shout out. Patricia said on the on the Rock and Roll pod, she said they should replace their line-out coach with 3 kids in a trench coat, which made me laugh so hard. I laughed out loud at work, and people turned their heads and scowled at me.
and Patricia has the doomsayer for Munster. I don't even want to talk about Munster getting beaten to her anymore because she's just so I don't want to talk about this. This is horrible and I hate it.
Speaking of Gregor, it's I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I just really don't like this. But I think Munster fans are smart enough to know that it's a lot of injuries. It's a lot of and you can't absorb that serious injuries to frontline players. It's not going to last all year. They need to get that line out sorted out. Their line out was close to 50%, I think.
It was
against Stormers last weekend, and that's being honest, that's not acceptable.
No.
As a professional team, I don't know how you let that happen. So there are obviously issues that they need to get sorted out. I don't think it's anything that they can't sort out, and there are players coming back that will help with it. So
it's hard for those kids to balance on each other's shoulders under that big trench coat.
I get being frustrated and I get being disappointed because Munster shouldn't be where they are. That's not Munster's position in the league. So
I'm saying this is the exact position they were in a couple of years ago when they won the whole thing. Are they just rope-a-doping us?
I think that's what. That's what they need to remember. Is
all the doomsaying just to throw us off the mark and make us shocked in the last 4 weeks when suddenly they go on another tear?
I hope they're not doing it on purpose, but I wouldn't. The same as what we'd say for Scarlets, but the opposite way around. I'm glad Scarlets fans are excited. I don't expect them to be there at the end of the season. I understand that Munster fans are gutted. I don't expect them to be there at the end of the season either.
Oh.
So, Munster are going to be back in the playoffs. I don't think they need to worry.
Well, Leinster versus Lions was up next, and
I really hoped that the Lions were going to do it. Lions are taking the turn to be the good ones in South Africa, and they could have done us all a favour.
I know. They ended up getting pretty spanked. Final score 24-6. Johnny, how could a team this good be so painful to watch? They put me to sleep trying to watch them.
It's what they've always been like, and I think that's why so many people who aren't Leinster fans struggle to take to Leinster. Again, I don't want to be the Homer guy that comes on and is we're so great. But if you're not a Glasgow fan, Glasgow are really fun to watch. It's easy to cheer for Glasgow because Glasgow are really fun to watch. If you're not a Leinster fan, there's nothing about Leinster that's exciting.
No.
You can sit there and go, wow, these are really technically proficient players doing very good things very well. Great. There's nothing exciting about that.
Even Jamison Gibson Park, he's the epitome of that, where I'm like, wow, that guy's good, and I just don't care if I never see him again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult, and it's a shame, because it's their way of doing things, and it's a very successful way of doing things, and obviously at the end of the day, Leinster don't give a shit whether I care about them or not. Leinster want to win stuff. I mean, mostly they want to win another European Cup, and that's not happening. It's all about the star. That's what makes it so funny. That's why we're all enjoying it so much. So they're bored and shit. We're like, well, you're no fun, and you keep not winning the one game that you want to win. Do your boring, no fun thing. So yeah, they just play a not very attractive brand of rugby just well enough to not win the things they want to win. So why would you be excited about that if you didn't support Leinster?
So you already mentioned this one. Cardiff got blanked by Ulster in the first half, but then went on a 21-0 run in the second half to take the lead. They ended up winning 21-19. Johnny, which of these teams is crazier right now? Which team would make you more nervous if you had a bet on them, win or lose?
I can't see a situation where I would willingly put my money on the line for either of these teams. Like,
right.
They are wild. And I turned the game on. I knew it was 19-0, and I turned it on. I had either that game last night, or I thought I could watch that new Springsteen Road Diary thing that's on Disney Plus, which I was really excited to watch. And I turned the game on just as Cardiff scored their first try, and I was like, "Oh, this is exciting." What I'll do is I'll watch until Ulster score again, then the game will be over. And then I'll
woke up this morning.
Yeah, and then I'll watch that Springsteen documentary. And because I've watched both teams this year, because Glasgow have played them both already, I was like, well, that's fine. I'll just watch until Ulster score. And then Cardiff scored, and I was like, shit. All right, fine. I'll watch till I see what happens, and then I'll watch the Springsteen documentary. Anyway, so I finished the Springsteen documentary at like midnight last night because I had to watch the whole of that game.
Of course.
But wild, like...
really big for Cardiff too. They needed this, right?
Oh yeah, huge. Yeah, and you could tell, like we mentioned it earlier, as it started to get more and more like it was happening, the crowd became a massive part of it.
Yeah.
And, their fans really need to get involved in making that happen, because I said this after the Glasgow game. I'm going to say it again now. Like, fundamentally, Cardiff are not a good team, and I mean that in like the most basic definition of Cardiff cannot do the fundamentals of rugby. They couldn't tackle at all against Glasgow.
That's been a bit of a problem.
I don't think I saw them string 3 passes together that everybody caught last night against Ulster, yet they still somehow won. If you're going to be a team that's going to win games, you need to be able to tackle, and you need to be able to catch and pass. Like, I was coaching under-8s rugby this morning, and they can catch and pass and mostly tackle. If you want to be a serious team, you need to be able to do that. And at the moment, I haven't seen anything that makes me think Cardiff can do that.
I'm so glad you're developing these pathways for Cardiff. This is great news for them.
I actually offered my services to Cardiff because the week that they played Glasgow was the week that I did the first ever coaching session about tackling with my under-8s team, because this is the first year we've started tackling. So I'd literally taught people, 8-year-old children, 7 or 8-year-old children, I'd taught them to tackle for the very first time in their entire lives the day before I watched the Glasgow Cardiff game, and I was like, oh, I know how to teach people to do that because I've just done it. And you are professional rugby players who apparently don't know.
And now you have a don't do this video to show them.
Yeah. Here's how you don't tackle.
So I, of course, support Connacht in the URC. They were back at the sports ground. Yes, I'm going to keep calling it that. They were facing the Dragons, who've looked lively this year, but my guys built the exact same lead that Ulster did in the first half, and it took more than a half hour for anyone to score after that. Fortunately for me, that team was Connacht, and by the end it was 31-7. I already mentioned a little scrappiness from Bundy Aki there at the end. Johnny, should I have any hope at all for Connacht this year?
Do you want me to be generous or realistic? Like, what do you want from this?
I need some hope.
I feel for Connacht, because Connacht always feel like a team where whenever you watch them, you're like, they're quite a decent team. They've got some good players and some good positions. They brought Josh Ioane in as well, who was brilliant at the Highlanders. And I'm just like, it's like this is a solid team that's good in a lot of places and fairly like fundamentally solid, but they're never going to do anything. Like, and I feel for them because they should be able to, but they don't. They're a mid-table team, Connacht. Something needs to happen that's going to push them up. And I don't know what it is.
It feels like the IRFU kind of wants them where they are. So it kind of feels like their circumstances will never allow them to get above that.
Yeah.
They would in the past, so maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah, for all the excitement of David Nucifora coming to work for the SRU, the legacy that he's left in Ireland is like Leinster are daddy's favourites and they get what they want, and everybody else can just scrap it out and see what happens. So, I mean, as long as daddy's favourites now that he's working for the SRU or Glasgow, I'm not overly concerned about it. But I'm perhaps not as excited at the prospect as a lot of other people are.
There should be a game show of like IRFU, the WRU, the SRU, like see who can screw up more. Like there should be some sort of like Japanese style competition where they have to get bonked and like hit by ooze and stuff through a wall.
The WRU would send 40 people in blazers because they love a free trip, and the SRU would forget to go. So we're already like.
I thought you were going to say the SRU would sue after losing.
We don't talk about For the record, right? I'm going to say this. I've said this many times, but I'm going to say it again because I'm sick of this. We tried to sue World Rugby, and World Rugby are unanimously the baddies. I get that you tried to sue the weather is a much funnier story.
It is, yeah.
But World Rugby are the baddies, and we're basically Robin Hood in this scenario, and it really annoys me that we get this like. You
know what went in your disfavor though was while the talk from the SRU was about we're going to sue and it looked like we're suing the weather. Meanwhile, the Canadians were out cleaning up in the streets, and if that hadn't happened, this whole thing would look different.
I think if you're going to compare yourself in terms of politeness and humbleness to Canada, like you're onto a loser to start with. That's just not fair.
They were like, "Oh, this city's a mess, eh? Good thing our game was cancelled."
That's like Zebra against Leinster levels of not fair. Like those are not two teams that are on the same platform.
So Ospreys versus Edinburgh, that was penultimate on my card. It was a phenomenal day in Bridgend. Ospreys, they scored first, but Edinburgh pulled ahead by a rather unimpressive 7-10 at halftime. Johnny, why can't Edinburgh score more? Ospreys, they look a bit shambolic at this point, but with Edinburgh's roster, it feels like they should be putting up points by the dozen, right?
Has there ever, in the history of rugby union, been a team that is as less the sum of its parts than Edinburgh Rugby is?
Not that I've seen.
Like, there's something very wrong there. How that Edinburgh team, with the players that they've got, are playing it the way they are and getting the results that they're getting. Like, it genuinely, looking at it on paper, should be harder for them to lose these games.
Right.
Than it is for them to win. It
should be a guaranteed 35 points for them every week. And then the other team, should be worried about their defense.
It's terrifying. And I don't know what the answer is. We've talked about this on the pod every week for the last 18 months. And nobody knows what the answer is. It's a mystery.
Which means it has to be coaching, right? It's got to be coaching. I mean, and to be fair, I'm not even saying, oh, this coach sucks. For a while, it was like, well, this guy's kind of your coach, but he's kind of interim, but we're not sure. Oh, wait, no, he's permanent now. Oh, wait. Like, it seemed like the bosses above the bosses were just hemming and hawing and just not paying attention.
It's definitely organizational, I think. Like,
yeah,
it's you'd have to say it can't be the player's fault. Like, having said that, we'll come to Scotland in a minute once we talk about the Glasgow game because I have some concerns there. But those are great players. Those are like there's Test Lions in that team.
Yeah,
like genuine, like potential to have 3 Test Lions there. In Ali Price and Hamish Watson and Duhan van der Merwe. Like those should be some of the best teams in the URC. By the way,
I would love to take two. Sorry to interrupt, but I would love to take 2 seconds. Hamish has not been the same since the Lions tour, right?
That was a cursed tour.
It was.
I mean, Rory Sutherland played in a test and then couldn't get a team.
Yeah,
Chris Harris can't get back in the Scotland squad. That and it's not
everything was
players.
Weird about
it's
that.
The same
tour.
For the players in the other countries. That tour was cursed.
I really think so. Like it sounds weird. It sounds weird to be serious about it, but I honestly think so. Hamish, like at the beginning of that tour, people were like, "Oh, he's not big enough and strong enough," and he was like, "What?" And then he went and played pretty okay, and then he came back and was a shell of himself. I don't get it.
Yeah, and it's not just Scotland, but for Scotland, more than half of the players have basically never been the same. Like it went well for Xander, it went well for Finn. You could say it was kind of 50-50 all right for Duhan.
I mean, nothing's going to affect Finn. Finn's like, what?
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the worst thing that happened to Finn was he had like a different flavor of Haribo from usual because he's in an unfamiliar country. But Ali Price his career's been a disaster since then. Chris Harris hasn't been in the Scotland squad basically since then. Mish has basically gone missing since it happened. I don't know, man. Like, cursed.
So either way, by the way, Glasgow have a team name, Warriors. Edinburgh don't. What's up with that?
They were very briefly called Edinburgh Gunners.
Really?
But it never really stuck. And then
no wonder.
So then they rebranded again to the Burger King logo, and they've never really had a name since. So
they should give out those, like when you go to Burger King, they have the little cardboard crown. They should give those out at their games. Just have you wear their little red thing.
Can you imagine Craig Manson wearing a Burger King crown to an Edinburgh game?
I can, frankly.
I'm going to make that happen.
Well, and even that wouldn't be like in Super Rugby and the NPC where everyone's wearing KFC.
Oh, the KFC buckets. Love it.
I love that. They love the KFC in New Zealand. By the way, Edinburgh, they only scored 3 points in the second half and lost 22-13. They're a bit of a shambles. We already mentioned it. Like, is coaching the only issue? The fact that we keep bringing up this question just makes me think that there's, like you said, something sort of fundamentally wrong there. Do you see that getting fixed? Is it the organization, or is it the SRU who has to kind of come in and fix this? And do you trust the SRU to do such a thing?
Yeah, I see. That's the thing, and it's really difficult. And I can't believe you've boxed me into this corner again because I'm about to do this thing again. But
Yes.
You would say maybe it is the SRU if it wasn't for the fact that, and I'm going to say it, we're the champions. Like, Glasgow won the URC. So how are Glasgow winning the URC and Edinburgh not getting to the playoffs? When on paper, like we said, Edinburgh probably have a more experienced and better squad. Like, how do you work out there what the problem is?
Well, of course, I saved it. The best game for last. It was Stormers hosting Glasgow in Stellenbosch. Very cool venue. I like it when they play there. Any thoughts on that ground?
I'm sure that they're happy that they could get back to the ploughing match that they were obviously doing before the game started, because that was one of the worst pitches I've seen in a long time. It's a beautiful venue, and I like the fact that it's a bit smaller because it always looks really busy. Some of the shots where you had the mountains in the background were amazing, but the pitch was terrible. And again, I'm saying it once more, we're the champions. So whatever was going on in the DHL stadium, punt that to Stellenbosch. We should be in the big stadium.
Well,
it's my personal feeling.
Did you know that Glasgow had only faced the Stormers 4 times before this match? The Stormers' only win coming back in April of 2022.
I did know that. Believe it or not, yes, I did.
Okay. And by the way, I can't not mention it. It was a freaking gorgeous day out, though, right? Like, it was a perfect day for rugby. There's the university atmosphere. There's the whole section that's clearly students and stuff. There's a different vibe. I really dig that.
Oh yeah, it looks like a great place to play. Like, really good fun.
The background, the sort of mountains, those trees. It's just something else. It took the home team more than a half hour to get the first points of the day, but they were locked at 7 at the break. I was expecting a lot more scoring, a lot more fireworks in this one. How did you feel at the half?
Yeah, I expected more points and less absolute madness, to be perfectly honest, but I did enjoy it. That try that the Stormers got chalked off, I personally would have just let them have it. I think I said this. I'm off Twitter, by the way, but I said it on Blue Sky, which is my new go-to place yesterday, because Sione's pass was forward for Kyle Rowe's try, but Andrew Brace had already chalked off 2 incredibly sexy tries for really niggly, narc reasons, and I think even he couldn't chalk off 3 because that first Stormers try was amazing.
You think that was a makeup call or not?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Interesting.
Because I think he's looked at the 2 that he's chalked off and gone, those were both really sexy tries that we pulled back for such a niggly reason. Maybe I'll just let that one go.
Well, Tuapolatu, he broke the tie. By the way, the comps had a really hard time saying Tuapolatu. They pronounced it differently every single time. But he got the try to break the tie. It was just his second try of the season. I thought about it, and I was wondering if you agree with this. For me, a big reason Sione doesn't score more is because he's so unselfish. Like, he's always going to make that extra pass, that final offload at the last second, then trying to force it himself. What do you think?
100%. Sione's distribution is, I don't even want to say underrated because everybody knows it's great, but I think that it could be great and underrated because it's world class.
It seems like every game he gives away 1 or 2 tries to somebody else that could have been his. Like, he probably would have made him, but it's an 80%, so he gives it to the person with a 90%.
I saw somebody say, and this is going to upset you, and I'm sorry, but I saw someone say that he does everything that Bundyaki does, but better, which is his kicking's brilliant, his distribution's incredible, he carries as strongly as Bundyaki does. I feel like we're close enough now. What is it now? The end of October, We're close enough. He should be the first name on the team sheet for the Lions next year. He is incredible.
I kind of think so. And also, I mean, Bundy's probably a lot older than him too, so he's got more miles on the old vehicle. So I actually had to stop watching this game at that point because they were playing Sweet Caroline for the love of all gods. There should be a hefty fine or sanctions from World Rugby when teams do that. 100%.
Right? I hate it. I actually made that exact noise and the same comment as we were watching the game yesterday because it drives me mental. There's no.
And by the way, it's our fault. It's the Red Sox fault. We started it, and now it's spread, and it's insidious. It's like a virus.
It is. And it is your fault. We've evolved as a society past the need for Sweet Caroline. I don't understand why it's still happening.
I know. It's like I'm not going to the match in a horse and buggy. So with a sparkling final quarter of play, your Warriors kind of laid the smackdown. Is that a new gear they've found this season? Do you think winning the championship has made Glasgow even better?
Yeah, and I don't think it's winning the championship that's made them better. I think it's the fact that they are champions. I think Franco Smith's been very clear about the fact that people are coming after Glasgow this year. Like, people are coming for them.
That's Glasgow on my list of questions. Wow.
So Glasgow are not the surprise package. And towards the end of last year, they kind of still were. Everyone knew they were a really good team. But then going to Thomond Park and shocking Munster, even in the semi-finals, and I said it myself, like, I've been a Glasgow fan for a long time, but I sat on the pod last year and said that was great, that was really exciting. There's no way we go to Loftus and beat the Bulls. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah, I think I had them penciled in for losses the last 3 games last year.
And I think, and so I get that, like, they were good and kind of a surprise this year, and this year they're not a surprise at all. So I don't think it's being champions. I think it's the fact that Franco's instilled in the players that people are coming for them. And Glasgow are clearly not messing around. Like, coming back from South Africa with 7 points from those 2 games is a phenomenal return. And that was Glasgow basically saying, like, we're not here to muck around now. Like, we are the champions, and we are here to play like the champions. And if you want to beat us, you better come out and beat us.
Well, I can't believe how well you teed that up for me. The next thing in my script was about, I said, in all sports, the team that wins the championship the next year, everyone says, okay, they've got a target on their back. Other teams are circling those dates on their calendars and all that kind of stuff. A, do you think that's true? And B, if so, it seems like Glasgow's up to the challenge, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely true. Like, there you can see from this season, I was gutted by the Ulster game, but Ulster obviously came out first game of the season, playing the champions, and they're going to come out and try and give somebody a bloody nose. And Glasgow should have won. It was very, very frustrating. But actually, and Franco came out and went, yeah, that was basically the last week of preseason for us. Like, we're fine. And fair play, they have been fine ever since. So I think if anybody was going to mount a serious challenge, I mean, Glasgow came away from Durban with 2 match points from a team that had 12 World Cup winners, 10 double World Cup winners. Like, that's a team that knows that everyone's coming for them and is prepared to front up for it. So I think that those last 2 weeks have been the toughest that Glasgow faced in a long time, and they've done really, really well. I'm still not convinced that we're going to win again, because I think once it gets to the playoffs,
it's hard to repeat.
Yeah, somebody like Leinster brings a playoff quality team, and you're the team that they want to knock off. It is really difficult. So repeating, I think, will be difficult, but I'm pleased with how Glasgow have done so far. Like, there's been a lot of challenges. People are obviously out for Glasgow, and Glasgow have handled pretty much everyone.
By the way, this is totally off script, but, like, are you able to separate all the previous iterations, the Pro 12, the Pro 14? Are you looking at it nowadays like, okay, in the URC, we've won 1 out of this very small number of championships, and so it's like, do you look at it as we're early in this competition, or is it like a continuum for you?
No, I think URC more than everything else, because they changed the structure so much, and we've now got the 4 divisions, and we've got the 4 South African teams. Pro 12, Pro 14, Rabo Direct 12, whatever it was before that, I'd say that all sort of merges into one. And then URC, when it became URC with the 4 divisions and the 4 South African teams, that becomes a distinct new competition for me anyway.
So final score was 17-28, a full 5-pointer for your guys. Is that the result you expected?
No, not at all. I thought Glasgow had a slightly better chance of winning this game than they did of winning last week.
When I look at the team sheets,
5 points.
both sides were like, we're going full noise.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that full noise for Glasgow and the Stormers is fairly even, and full noise for the Sharks is a team where 10 of them have won 2 World Cups. So, and I'm going to keep beating this drum because I'm sick of people saying I can't believe Glasgow lost to the Sharks, because the Sharks that Glasgow played are not the Sharks that everybody else had played up to that point.
Oh yeah, there's at least 3 Sharks. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Last year, Glasgow were 5-1. As if we were talking at that stage this year, but this year they're 4-2. But last year you hadn't gone to South Africa for a 2-game trip. Feeling optimistic right now?
I'd say comfortable and confident that we will be in the playoffs, and probably at home in the quarterfinals. Beyond that, we'll see what happens.
Is it bad luck to be leading if you're at the top of the table for the rest of the way, are you going to get increasingly nervous?
Yeah, it's bad luck if you're Leinster.
So, and by the way, we kind of already hinted at it. How much of Glasgow's recent success is about players sort of continuing to gel with each other, but how much of it is about Franco?
I think it's both.
By the way, if Franco was coaching Edinburgh, would they be less harebrained right now?
I think so. Yeah, I think Franco's a great coach, and he's done a great job with Glasgow. The players obviously get on. He's done a really good job building a squad that gets on with each other and plays well together, and he knows what to say and what to do. I remember seeing Ollie Smith the tail end of the regular season last year getting interviewed on TV, and Ryan Wilson saying the same on comms, where Franco, after the Dragons game where Glasgow scored 9 tries, and beat Dragons by about 55 points, going into the dressing room and going mental and being like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, we left this out there, this was wrong with defence, and then going in after a game where you'd lose by 3 or 4 points to Leinster or Ulster or whatever and saying, listen, don't worry about it, we've got a couple of things we've identified, we'll work it out. Like, I think the way that he approaches games is excellent. I think he could do wonders for Edinburgh. I think, and this kind of occurred to me yesterday, this is my kind of like worrying, this is what worries me on the end of the like tail off Glasgow, is I'm not ready to lose Franco from Glasgow yet. But Glasgow in the last 2 weeks have played probably 11 or 12 of the Springboks starting 15 over those 2 games and outscored them pretty comfortably over the 2 games. Scotland should be thinking that we'll welcome the Springboks to Murrayfield and we should beat them, and we won't. We'll get pummeled. So who's the problem there? Because the majority of the Scotland players play for Glasgow. The majority of the Springboks players play for the 2 teams that Glasgow have just acquitted themselves really well against in the last 2 weeks.
That's a great point.
So what changes? Who's the problem? I think we know who the problem is. If I was realistic, I'd be looking at the Glasgow team with Xander, with Sione, with all the guys in the back row, and thinking, Jesus, if we put Finn Russell and Duhan van der Merwe on that team, we should be handling anybody. And I'm not. I'm thinking, like, Duhan and Finn will fit into that team really well, but something is going to happen that's going to make that team not as good. And we know exactly who that person is.
You know, to even further complicate it, I was kind of thinking, I'm like, I'm pretty clever thinking this, like, Franco could easily succeed Gregor when they finally realized that he shouldn't be the coach anymore. But then I was talking to Harry Jones on this pod, and he was like, oh yeah, I see Franco being the next South Africa coach after Rassie decides to move to the next thing. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Oh,
I don't like that at all. No.
Which of those things do you think is more likely?
That's a good question. Because the SRU are really good at keeping the pathway going and moving people on. And, you know, you saw how it happened with Gregor, and it happened arguably too early with Gregor. But then Franco is South African, so if South Africa come asking, why would you say no? They're double world champions. Oh, I wouldn't like, no, I don't like that.
I'm sorry to make you
ruins my day.
This is exactly how I felt when Harry said that. I was like, wait, I just, no, it, but.
No, I hate that.
I also love the way he's always dressed up. I mean, you probably watch more soccer than I do because I watch zero, but it seems like a soccer coach thing where you're really dressed up. And Franco's always like that. There was last year, I think, probably during the 1872 Cup, it's they're like, oh, Franco's decked out in his Christmas gear, and it was one sweater vest underneath the jacket.
Yeah.
You could kind of tell there might be a Christmas tree, and I was like, yeah, that's celebratory for this guy.
That's as excited as Franco gets.
Yeah. He was wearing just a shirt this weekend. I was like, oh my God, he's almost naked.
Warm,
it feels
though.
weird.
It was hot.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts about this game? You must be over the moon that Glasgow got this victory. I think I have to check my Super Brew. I think I had them penciled in for a loss. And the Stormers were not messing around, too. So,
no,
by the way, at one point the comms talked about Joseph Dweba, and they said, he's a strong man. And I wondered if you agree with that.
Do you know what? He is undoubtedly a very strong man, but also Razzie would rather play a back row player as hooker in a World Cup final than add him to a squad.
Razzie does not trust Dwebe.
Yeah, I don't know. Those were two no-messing teams that Glasgow played in South Africa and did really well. Yeah, very, very happy. You couldn't have really asked for any more. I didn't think we were getting 2 points against the Sharks. No chance.
Right.
So yeah, happy to take 2 points for that. I never saw 5 points yesterday coming.
Final thoughts on this game or Glasgow in particular?
Brilliant. Exactly what we expected. Frank. The nice thing about Franco is he's done a really good job of sort of incrementally improving everything as we go. And Glasgow seem to just be doing those small improvements. I think there would have been a danger of the fact that winning last year would have made them a little bit complacent, but actually they do seem to be facing up to the challenge of now being the champions rather than being the team going out to try and win it. So I think they're developing really well. I think there's another good half of the season coming. I'm really interested to see what happens once the Champions Cup starts, because that's where I'd be looking for Glasgow this year.
Well, by the way, you've been wearing that weird Racing 92 / Pumas kit in your away games recently. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm always like, who am I watching right now?
I like it better than I've liked the last couple of away kits. It's definitely.
I like it better than the full baby blue.
Yeah,
the stripes is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's definitely better than the red one.
So that, of course, brings us to our Diamond in the Ruck section of the show. Just like last week, we're doing the same thing. We're going to give the honors of bestowing this most prestigious of rugby awards to our esteemed guest. Jonny, who stood out for you? Who was your Diamond in the Ruck this week?
It was always going to be a homer pick, and I really wanted it to not be the obvious one. I wanted, if Stormers had done 3 or 4 more kicks, I would have got to do what I wanted to do and give it to Josh Mackay, because I think Josh Mackay never gets the recognition that he deserves. He is an incredibly solid defensive fullback. His ability catching the high ball is fantastic. I think he's a really underrated key to Glasgow, and I wanted to give it to him, but I think Stormers just didn't kick it to him enough. In a game where Sione played as well as he did, it's impossible to give it to anybody else, so it's going to have to be Sione Tuipulotu.
Oh, it's a great shout. By the way, the comms tend to say Josh McKay. I've noticed when I listen to you guys, you say Josh Mackay, and I'm like, who's got this right?
It's us.
I assume it's you. That is a great shout. Sione Tuipulotu, I am so happy to declare you our Diamond in the Ruck this week. Congratulations, sir. Well done. Okay, Jonny, what's going up on the show coming up? What's up for you? What's coming up with your playing days? What's coming up on the podcast? What can you plug for us?
We are back to being as regular as we possibly can for the pod. We kind of had a little bit of a summer break. We're working on some new things. We might hear some new voices coming up very soon, which is exciting. We're trying to sort of expand the stable a little bit so we can be as weekly as possible, because I know we kind of struggled over the summer. We will be bringing back the Only Finns over the autumn series. Try and get some team news on a Friday for for when people are around to do it. So that's exciting. I've managed to get away with playing only twice this year, so that's good.
Are you excited for the autumn internationals? Like it feels like it's coming in with a whimper rather than a bang.
Yeah, I don't know. It just is. And I hate to be that guy. Autumn internationals has always been free to air TV in the UK. It's been Amazon Prime the last couple of years, which is like, it's annoying, but Amazon Prime's like £5 a month in the UK. So that's like what, $7-8 a month. Yep. So that was frustrating. It's now moved to TNT, which is the broadcaster who does the Premiership. They're like £30 a month. And I think a lot of people are like, I'm not paying £30 to watch it. So nobody seems as excited, I think, and I think that's sort of a backward step. I think.
Well, the game we didn't even mention, New Zealand played Japan today. This weekend. I have no idea what happened. It was unavailable on any of my platforms. I'm like,
I can tell you one thing that happened. Japan's tight head sent Damien McKenzie to the shops and back with the most outrageous double step you have ever seen in your life. It was brilliant.
Really?
I love seeing bad things happen to Damien McKenzie.
But the All Blacks had to win, right?
They won by about 45 points.
You know. Eddie Jones losing is on my list of things I want every week. So,
yeah, but then so's the All Blacks losing, though.
Yeah, but you forget, I like the All Blacks. The All Blacks are a part of the reason I started watching rugby.
See, this is the annoying thing. I like the concept of the All Blacks. I love New Zealand. My fellow coach at the club is a New Zealander. I like seeing him happy, I guess, probably. The All Blacks are an exciting thing, but so many of those players are so unlikable now that I'm just like, I like seeing you sad. I want Damien McKenzie to be sad all the time. I want Sevu Reece to live a life of perpetual sadness. Like, it's really difficult.
Like, it's funny too because the All Blacks were my gateway into rugby in the first place, but they're the most winning side of all time. Like, what's their? It's like 72% of their games they've won.
Ludicrous,
it's something insane that no one else has approached. So it's the most like. When I watch All Blacks games, there's people in the crowd wearing Yankees hats, and I'm like, yeah, of course you like the frickin' Yankees, and so I feel like that.
Has there ever been a less likable World Series? By the way, Jesus.
I know, but Major League Baseball is so excited. It's LA versus New York.
I'm rooting for heat death of the universe before either of those teams win a World Series.
Exactly. I mean, well, I live in Boston. The Yankees have to lose. They have to lose really badly. The Dodgers beat them in the first game with a walk-off grand slam, something that's never happened in the history of the entire World Series. Pretty cool. But, so because I like the All Blacks, that's led me to always support underdogs in every other competition. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to like the Highlanders in Super Rugby. I'm going to like Connacht in the URC. I'm going to pick Harlequins in the Prem. Like, I pick teams that aren't going to win, so I don't feel so bad about it, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a lot harder for your weekend to be ruined when you didn't expect it to be good anyway.
Exactly. Although, I mean, New Zealand, it's not good right now. The men and the women, it's rough. Jonny McGinty, this has been amazing as always. Any final thoughts on round 6 in general? By the way, I think it was Grav on the Rock and Roll podcast who called this the end of the first trimester of the competition. I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm going to keep using that.
That's standard Grav.
No, but it's somehow perfect. Any thoughts on the state of the league? What you see coming? What are your final thoughts for us?
It's been a good start. It's been exciting. It's been, I think the majority of the teams, like, they are who we thought they were. Munster and Scarlets, we spoke about, obviously, are the outliers in that. We'll see what happens with the South Africans. I think there's a lot to shake out there. Patricia and I were saying the other day that South Africa seem to have like one team who's allowed to be good at a time, and it's like they've not quite worked out who this year.
They're passing around the brain.
Yeah, exactly, and they haven't worked out who it's going to stop at so far this year. So I think there's a couple of things still to shake out, but it's looking like another really good season. Like, I know I say this all the time, URC is a great competition. Like,
it's really great.
I'm excited.
I think this is the best year yet, too. The fact that
it's been really good.
Leinster's undefeated, but other than that, everybody's got some wins that are like, oh, really? Like, it's been great.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
I think that's it. Any last thoughts for us before I let you go? I think you have a Halloween party to get back to.
I do indeed, yeah. I'm going to go and retrieve my children and my wife.
What's your favorite costume that you've seen at the party, or are people actually dressing up?
There's a couple of dress ups. It's mostly the kids, kind of standard Halloween dress up fare. So no adult costumes yet. Maybe I'll get back and it'll have degenerated. I've not actually seen that many good costumes this year. This year's been it's not Halloween yet, but it's been adult costume wise quite disappointing so far.
There was a couple of years when the whole thing was like sexy blank or slutty blank, and I was like, can we stop with the slutty garbage collector?
Make a good costume. Yeah. let me send you once we get off air here my 2015 Halloween costume, which was Craig Joubert as the devil with a pocket full of Australian dollars. I'll send you that when we get off.
I thought you were going to say slutty podcaster.
That's just my day-to-day attire.
Yes. Jonny McGinty, this is always so much fun. I really appreciate your time. I want to get you back to your life. Thank you so much. I hope to talk to you soon. By the way, I do expect you and Patricia to come on and talk about the Champions Cup and all the EPCR stuff. We're counting down. It's actually coming. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Good to see you. We will do that for sure.
Okay. All my friends across the globe, cheers. Talk to you soon. And be well.
Bye, all. See you soon.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, neat.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?
That was awesome, Jonny.
That was good fun. Thank you very much. Enjoyed that.
Love it. Okay. Thank you, my friend. Sorry it took so long. Get back to your life.
No problem. No, it was good fun. See you soon.
Love you, pal. Catch you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.